Story 1. A Visit from Grandma.
A few weeks before my grandma left us, she told all the kids that if we didn't behave well, she will come back and twist our ears. We were just kids at the time, so we were scared shitless anyway. About a few months later, after she left us, I started hanging out with bad kids at my school, and it had a bad influence on me because I started becoming a bad kid too. I never listened to my parents much anymore, and I would argue or fight with them. One night, my parents decided to leave the house and left me with my 2 younger brothers that were about 6 years old, and one little sister about 5 years old. I was in the living room downstairs playing games on the PS4 when I heard a slow knock at the door. I went up to the door and peeked my eyes through the eye hole, but there was nobody outside. The front door light wasn't even on, so it was pitch black. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but I opened the door and felt a gust of cold breeze go past me into the house. I closed the door and locked it before heading back to the living room. I saw my little brother walking down the stairs toward me with a scared look on his face. I asked him what was wrong, and he looked at me and said,
"I saw Grandma sitting on your bed."
I felt as if my spirit has just left my body. I looked at him like he was crazy. I told him he was just seeing things. I went to check in my room, but there was nothing there. I went back downstairs to play my game, but just then, I heard my little sister crying as I ran to her and asked what happened. She pointed to the parents' dark room and said Grandma was stealing her toy. I looked in the room as I flipped the light switch on. Her toys were on the ground next to the computer. I was scared to death, but I had to stay strong for my siblings, so I just chose not to believe them. It was midnight now, and I remember my mom told me they won't be home until very late, so I had to put my siblings in bed. After putting my younger siblings to bed, I turned off all of the lights and went to the bathroom for number 2. As I was sitting on the toilet, I heard footsteps like someone was walking very slowly in the hallways. After I was done, I washed my hands, but as I exit the bathroom and looked down onto the hallway floor, I noticed there was a string on the floor. I picked it up and noticed it was one of the strings that we tied to Grandma's arm before she passed away. I went back into the bathroom and turned on the lights to have a better view of it. I looked in the mirror and saw Grandma standing behind me for a second, but she disappeared within a second after I blinked. I thought I was just seeing things, so I left the string there and went back into my room to sleep. I turned the light off and covered the blanket over me as I felt someone walking by the end of my bed, slowly pulling my blanket away. I pulled it back as much as I could until it stopped. After what felt like an hour later, I was about to fall asleep when all of my siblings ran into my room nearly crying. They told me they saw Grandma walking into the room. Her eyes were popping out, and her tongue was long. We stayed in my room cuddling up to each other as we waited until the parents came back home. I was just 11 years old, so I told them everything we saw, but they didn't believe us. Ever since then, I would experience scary stuff like my door randomly opening or the bathroom sink randomly turning on. I even have dreams of Grandma following me. My parents went to go fetch a shaman for me. The shaman said that Grandma just wanted to come mess with us because she misses us, and I wasn't behaving well, so she just wanted to come mess with me a little. Since then, I started behaving well again and stopped hanging out with my bad friends. Grandma had also stopped messing with me.
Story 2. The Haunted Bathroom.
So back in 10th grade, there was a rumor that in one of the girls' bathrooms, there was a girl that committed suicide there. They found her body after a girl went in there and saw it. Ever since then, no girl would ever dare enter that bathroom alone. I never believed them, so one day, I decided to stay after school and go see it myself. It was winter season, so by the time it gets to 5 p.m., it would be dark by then, which meant for all the kids who stayed after school will be there until dark. I decided to stay after school, and once it was dark, I left my friends and went into the haunted bathroom everyone was talking about. The bathroom was all the way at the end of the hall, and it was quiet, so I had to walk all the way there. The stall where the girl died was the last one all the way to the end, so I went into the stall next to it. I really have no idea what I was thinking at that time, but I felt extremely brave, so I closed the door, turned off the lights, and entered the stall next to the one by the end, and locked the stall door as I sat on the toilet in the darkness. It felt like a few hours went by, and there was nothing. I got bored and was about to leave when I heard what sounded like a quiet crying sound from a girl from the stall, right next to mine's. She was whimpering and crying. I could hear her quietly saying, "I'm sorry, Mom, I'm so sorry," before it went quiet as I heard the sound of a body falling over and a knife dropping right onto the ground. I can hear the sound of liquid dripping as I sat there frozen in fear. I was too scared to take any action. I just listened to what will happen next. It went quiet for about a few minutes before I heard the body slowly getting up back on its feet as the stall door next to me slowly opens. I could still hear the sound of the blood dripping as the body was now right in front of my stall door standing there. It started scratching on the door slowly. At this point, I felt like I was legit frozen, as if someone had just put me inside an ice cube. My sweat was all over me like I was getting roasted alive. It got quiet again, but I wouldn't dare move an inch. After about what felt like an eternity, the body made its way back to the stall next to me, and that was the last time I heard it. The rest of the time was just dead silence. I stayed put for about an hour before making a run for it as I rushed out of the stall and to the door trying to open it as fast as possible, but the door wouldn't open. I panicked and tried to open the door like there was no tomorrow until I managed to pull it open and ran back into the cafeteria, back to where my friends were. I told them what happened, but they just laughed at me. I went home that night, but I couldn't sleep. I was traumatized by what I experienced. I still hear her voice inside my head over and over, and even some nights when I was about to sleep, I hear her calling my name. I never told anyone else about it, though, other than my friends. It took about a month for me to get over it and return back to my normal state. I never dare go anywhere near that bathroom again.
Story 3. The Incomprehensible Voice.
I love singing. It was one of my favorite hobbies of all time. I would sing every day and night, and even when I woke up. One night I was singing my heart out to a very emotional song. It was so emotional that it made me tear up a bit while singing. I heard as if someone was singing along with me. I looked around, but there was no one around. I sang again and I heard it again. Every time I sing, I hear it singing along, but when I stop, it also stops. I walked out of my room and to my siblings and asked if they were singing, but they said no. I stopped singing and went to bed that night. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up to what sounded like someone singing just outside of my window. It sounded very quiet and mumbled, but I could tell what kind of song it is. I listened very closely, and to my terror, it was singing the same song that I was singing earlier. It sounded like a female voice mixed with a guy's voice. I couldn't tell what gender it was. I went to go wake up my parents, but when we came back into my room, the singing had already stopped. They told me I was just hearing things as they went back to sleep. A few weeks later, I recorded a cover of a song that I liked, but after I got done recording and played it back to me, I heard a voice singing along with me in the audio, but it was so quiet that you could only hear it if you pay close attention to it. I was creeped out by then because I don't even have anyone singing with me. I listened to the instrumental again, but there weren't any background vocals. I saved the audio and played it for my dad to hear, but the audio got corrupted, and I couldn't play it anymore. I would hear the voice sometimes I sing. I didn't hear it all the time, but it was only rare times when I hear it. At first, the voice sounded like it belonged to someone else, but it started to sound like my own voice the more I heard it. Just a few months ago, I checked my desktop and realized that there was a saved MP3 file named Short Little Cover. I played the audio, and it was my own voice singing to a song that I didn't even cover or downloaded. It kinda had static and sounded a bit echoing. I immediately deleted the file and haven't been singing ever since then until these recent days.
Story 4. The Apartment.
I recently moved into an apartment with 2 of my friends and decided to split the bills so all of us can pay together. The first few months went by fine, but then I started hearing noises coming from one of the rooms that one of my friends slept in. They both worked the second shift, but I worked the first shift, so I would be home alone later in the day. One night, I was in my bed using my phone when I heard what sounded like a lady screaming from the room that I always hear noises from. I got up and went to go check, but there was nothing. I turned on the lights in that room and went back into my room as my friends got back home that night from work. A few weeks later, it was during the same time when I was alone in the house while my friends were at work. I was lying down on my bed trying to relax until a white lady that looked like she was in her 30s suddenly walked into my room panicking and telling me to run. She had a few bloodstains and scars on her face like someone was slashing her. I woke up and realized it was just a dream. I felt goosebumps rising on my arms and was scared shitless. I locked my door and stayed put. When my friends got back, I told them everything that I'd heard and experienced, but they didn't believe me fully. They were telling me that I'm just tired since I worked the first shift and I barely sleep. The other creepy experience I had was one night when I was already half asleep. I heard my door slowly opening, like someone was opening my door very slowly. I opened my eyes and looked at the door, but there wasn't anybody there. I got up and shut the door. I felt as if someone was in the house with me. Some days, I would hear my friends talking to each other about something, but they wouldn't let me know. Whatever it was, they seemed kind of stressed about it. They finally came and told me that we were moving out. I asked them why, but they didn't really want to tell me. We decided to move out to a duplex house and live there for the time being. They finally told me that the reason why we moved out of that apartment was that the apartment is haunted. When they first slept in that room, they kept hearing whimpers and the sound of a lady screaming in pain, but it wasn't loud. It was just a sound that they were hearing like echoing in their ears every time they slept in that room. Some nights when they returned back home, they would see a lady walking around outside our door, all alone in the dark. Even sometimes, they see me walking into my room when I was already at work. They went to go ask the manager about the apartment. At first, the manager didn't want to tell them, but he had no other choice. The manager told them that the apartment we were staying in used to have a married couple that was there before us. One night they were arguing and the husband was drunk at the time, so he got violent and started slashing her with a kitchen knife. When the cops arrived, the husband was long gone while the wife was on their bed with her messy corpse. They didn't want to tell me since I worked the first shift, and I would be alone when it was dark, so they didn't want to scare me.